All right guys, Tyler down here at Emerald City Guitars. Days are getting shorter, there's a chill in the air, and this year, as every year, we're seeing a huge uptick in crack repairs back here in the shop. So I find myself more and more having to explain the idea of humidification to people. People have lots of questions. It turns out there's a lot of misunderstandings on the concept, especially how it relates to vintage guitars and vintage acoustics particularly. And so I thought I'd take a little time today to kind of clear some of those up and talk about humidification. So right off the bat, I'll say that electric guitars are way less sensitive to swings and humidity than acoustic guitars. In really severe cases, you might see maybe some setup issues or things like that, but things that are very easily fixable, very reversible, not permanent at all. Now, acoustic guitars, on the other hand, are prone to serious long-term permanent damage based on humidity swings. So that's kind of what we'll concentrate on today. So first things first, there are two different kinds of humidity. There's absolute humidity and there's relative humidity. Now, absolute humidity is generally expressed in something like grams per cubic meter. It's just an amount of water. Now, relative humidity, on the other hand, is usually expressed as a percentage. And what it is the amount of water vapor that's in the air relative to the amount of water vapor that air could potentially hold, its capacity basically. And why these two things are different, the absolute and the relative humidity, is that because when the temperature of air changes, its potential capacity to hold water vapor also changes. So warmer air can hold more water vapor and colder air can hold less water vapor. So just for an example, if we were in a room here with a constant absolute humidity and we turned on the heater, the air in here would get warmer and thus the capacity that air had to hold water would increase, which, even though the absolute humidity in the room stays constant, the amount of water in the room stays constant, the relative humidity would drop because of that temperature increase. So this relative humidity number, that's the one that we care about because that's the one that the guitar cares about, basically. So the ideal relative humidity for an acoustic guitar is usually somewhere in the range between 45 and 55%. Now, it's at this humidity range that these guitars are manufactured for the most part. Anybody who retails high-end acoustic or vintage acoustic guitars will have some sort of humidity control in the shop that keeps it around this range. And, I'd say the same for repair shops. If you're working on this kind of stuff, vintage acoustics or very high-end acoustics, you're going to want an environment that keeps the relative humidity between 45 and 55%. Now this range, 45 to 55, isn't totally concrete. If your room hits 44%, your guitar's not going to explode, but it's a really good thing to shoot for. Now, when the humidity gets much below that range, the wood will start to shrink, get smaller, and if it gets much above that range, the wood's going to start to swell. So a guitar swelling up due to high humidity is generally a little less serious than it shrinking due to low humidity. So if you do have to air on one side or the other, generally wetter is better. Now the effects of low humidity on acoustic guitars are something we've probably all seen. These will show themselves in the form of top cracks and back cracks, kind of along the grain, center seam separation oftentimes. In very severe cases, you'll see the top kind of deform, almost like a potato chip, and that's due to the shrinking of the wood. So the effects of overhumidification of acoustic guitars are rarer, but in really severe cases, sometimes that can include braces popping off the top or back because the plates are swelling. Oftentimes the guitar can start to sound really dead tonally, just because all the water in that wood is making it heavy and it's not doing what it should be able to do. Now in some really severe cases, the neck geometry can actually be affected. The back will swell and basically stretch along its length, tilting the neck block forward. It's going to look like you need a neck reset because you probably do. Although these are pretty rare, like I said, overhumidifying is relatively rare, the effects can be just as serious because in many cases, some of these deformations due to the swelling will actually stay even, when you have the guitar back where it should be. But again, issues like this generally require the guitar to be exposed to extremely high humidity, like 85, 90% for a prolonged period of time. So not very common, but definitely something to look out for. So these are the issues that we might see, but what can we do to prevent this? Well, first of all, I would invest in a small digital hygrometer, something like this. I have several throughout the shop. They're a really good way to keep track of what the temperature and relative humidity is in your shop. They're super cheap too. I think this one was like 15 bucks. I've had it for years and it works awesome. Like I said, they're really affordable. I have 3 or 4 of them kicking around back here and throughout the shop just to keep a good eye on how things are changing around my space. They're great for your guitar room if you have that, or wherever you store your guitar. Just pop it somewhere in the room. Generally away from windows or doors is the best to get the most accurate reading, but at least one is invaluable to have around the house. So the second thing I would recommend is to avoid drafts and drastic temperature changes in the spaces where you keep your guitars. So just for an example, if your music room is 70 degrees and 50% humidity, it's perfect. But then you swing open the door to outside, it's the middle of winter, all this cold, dry air rushes in. That of course will cause the relative humidity to plummet, and you could be in some serious trouble. Now, believe it or not, adding warm air to the situation can have the same negative effects. Now, if you flip on a space heater, of course, the temperature of the air is going to increase and the relative humidity is going to plummet and put you in the same situation. So what you want to avoid at all costs is any sort of swing in temperature. Now, a third suggestion I would have, if you're having problems still, is to store your guitar in its case. I know most people prefer to have them out on stands or out on the wall, so do I, but having the guitar in the case really protects it from, like I said, those drastic swings in temperature and humidity. So the interior of that case, of course, will eventually reach ambient temperature, but it's going to take a lot longer and keep your guitar a lot safer. So one last thing you could do, if all else fails, is to invest in a humidifier. Now, this is going to be the least inexpensive option on the list here, but they are really, really great to have and offer an incredible amount of control for the humidity in your space. Now, this could be a wall-mounted one, like we have here in the shop. It could be an encased humidifier, a sound hole one. A lot of the sound hole ones work really, really well, especially if you keep the guitar in the case. And like I said, it gives you really great control of how much humidity is making it to your guitar. All right, so that's my take on humidity. I know it's kind of boring, but I do think it's important, especially if you're dealing with vintage instruments or really high-end acoustics at all. Now, crack repairs for me, they're not really a big deal. Structurally, your guitar is going to be fine. It's going to sound just as good. But once your guitar is cracked forever. And that's why crack-free examples of vintage guitars have continued to skyrocket in price and rarity. They're just less and less every day. So that's my advice. Just start paying attention to the humidity in your guitar spaces. If you have any questions or comments or tricks for keeping your guitars humidified, feel free to drop them down in the comments. Thanks for watching.